Okay, we're live on YouTube, everybody.
What time is it?
10:31.
Well, time to get me started. Okay, so it's 10:31. We'll call this meeting, emergency town board meeting, October 7th, 2022. Shall we stand and have pledge of allegiance to the flag?
It's only 2020, not 22.
I'm sorry, 2020. Hopefully, we won't be talking about this in 2 more years, right? Okay. Pledge of allegiance to the flag. United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mrs. Benson, I guess you want to do roll call?
Here.
Oh, no.
Andrew Benson,
Here.
Doug Day,
Doug Dake? Here. There you go.
Bronwyn Losey,
Here.
Joseph Wetmore,
Okay.
is Joe there?
Joe?
No Joe?
No Joe.
He was here.
All right. We just have a quorum.
Edward Levine?
Here. Okay, so on the agenda, I'm reading off this one you gave me right here. Correct?
Yes, correct.
Can everybody hear me through the mask? Let me put it like this. So the agenda, the first thing on the agenda is Yellow Barn presentation, CS Energy, Ann Walling, and Mitch Quine. So do we have them in the waiting room?
Yep, we'll admit them now.
All right, so
Okay, and I think Joe is, hang on, I think we got Joe coming too.
well, let's get started with the presentation.
Just admitting them now.
Thank you.
Yep.
You see okay?
Yeah.
You see okay, Jean?
Fine. I might come over there.
Hi, Ann and Mitch, how's it going?
You want to sit here in front?
Just,
Or do you want me to move over?
no,
here?
no, I'm good. I'll just sit right here. I just right in the corner. It's good. Just sit right here.
Yeah.
Hey, Ann.
Hey.
Hey,
Hello.
which of you will be presenting? I'm happy to spotlight you.
Mitchell.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Is Mitch also with us, Ann?
Yes, yes. I think you just.
Hey, good morning. Yeah,
There you go.
I just joined.
Good. So I guess we'll start with our presentation of the CS Energy. This is the Yellow Barn solar presentation. So please go ahead. Give us the presentation.
Thank you very much. All right, let me try to share my screen here. All right, so good morning, everyone. Thanks for setting the time aside. Let me know if you're having any trouble seeing me or seeing my screen. I know, I think I haven't met everybody here. I know last year, obviously, we spent some time in front of the town board introducing ourselves and kind of talking about the proposed solar law. Obviously, a lot has happened to the world and to us between then and now. So glad to kind of get back in front of you folks and talk a little bit. So just wanted to give, quick 5-10 minutes, introduce ourselves and kind of what we're planning and then, answer any questions you guys have. So the Yellow Barn Solar Project is under development in both the town of Lansing and the town of Groton. A little bit about who we are, CS Energy. We have a lot of experience. We actually started as a solar contractor, actually about close to 15 years ago now, working on, at the time, much smaller solar projects, carport canopies, large commercial rooftops, starting in New Jersey. We've since expanded quite a bit. We have, at this point, we've installed, we actually hit a gigawatt this year of solar installations to date. Only about a dozen contractors in the country can say that at this point. So we're pretty proud about that. And, our experience has been primarily focused in the Northeast, in New York, over the past couple of years in particular. In 2019, we actually won the #1 solar contractor in New York, as well as in New Jersey. And I think the year before that, we won Massachusetts and Rhode Island. So we're very busy on the contracting side, but we're also a major developer of wholesale projects. So as you guys know, there's a few different kind of solar projects that go on in New York. There's the kind of classic residential projects that are built, rooftops or, a small array behind somebody's house. There's the community solar projects, which while those have grown a little bit over the past few years from, something that would be located on, maybe 5 to 10 acres, they now get up into the 25, maybe 50 acre range. Those kind of sell power directly on the distribution system. They sell directly to retail consumers, and they operate on kind of like a subscription basis with the community. And then the third type of project is a wholesale power project, which will tie generally into the transmission system, higher voltage system, and sell directly into the New York independent system operators wholesale market. And so while we build both community solar and wholesale projects for other clients, in terms of the projects that we develop ourselves, we focus on the wholesale market. And so the Yellow Barn solar project that we're proposing or hoping to develop in town is going to be a wholesale project. A little bit of info, as I'm sure you guys have been acquainted at this point, on the NYSERDA large scale program. So each year they run an independent competitive solicitation for large scale renewable projects. That's been running since 2017, was the first one that had been kind of opened up following the new clean energy standard being announced in 2016. We had 6 projects out of that RFP that are now going under construction. Our understanding, though this is yet to be confirmed, is that those are actually the first large-scale wholesale projects going under construction in the state. So we're really proud about that. Happy to have delivered that. And obviously, it was a long timeline, and each of those projects was actually a seeker permitted project, which is part of why it was able to proceed so quickly. We didn't go through that Article 10 process for those. We are intending to participate in the 2020 RFP with a number of projects, one of which we're hoping to bid in with Yellow Barn Solar. And so that bid is coming up later this month. There's obviously a lot of information that they're looking for from us as part of that analysis of the project. One item of which is kind of proof of interaction with the town, which is part of why we're hoping to speak to you today about a letter in support. So a little bit more information about the project specifically, though there obviously at this point is not a lot to go on. We are projecting a 160 megawatt project. At this point, we don't anticipate that size changing. We have submitted that to the NYSO and to NYSEG, and that's the size of project that we intend to get studied and we intend to proceed with. So we don't anticipate that increasing or decreasing significantly. You can see the interconnection point located there near the border of Lansing and Groton. We have that called out. along Van Ostrom Road near Buck Road. We're proposing to connect to one of those two 115 kilovolt transmission lines that's running through the parcel there. We are, looking at probably somewhere in the ballpark of 1,000 to 1,300 acres to make up the full project. Right now we have about 500 acres under control, split between Lansing and Groton, and we're continuing our landowner negotiations as we speak. We do have an active queue position with an ISO and with NICEAG. That's queue position 1009. If you pull down the NISO interconnection key, you can see our system on there, Yellow Barn Solar. And like I said, current status is we're continuing with the land negotiation process. We are planning to submit our application to NYSERDA here this month. It's a few month turnaround process in which we would hopefully find out if we were to win an award. Once we were to find that out, we would work with the town to determine our best path forward toward a application. Obviously, there's new draft regulations with ORES. There's still the old legacy Article 10. So we would want to work with the town and figure out our best path forward there. And then I think, our real next step, even potentially prior to the award or prior to submitting an application, would be to have a bit of an informal, public presentation, public information session to keep people informed and keep people on board. So that's it. Just wanted to run through really quick, and I'll end it there and just see if anybody has any questions.
So,
What's your deadline for getting a letter of support?
Excuse me, may I run the meeting? I'd like to go in alphabetical order here. First of all, if we have any questions. So Andrea, do you have any questions?
I was wondering how many acres were proposed in the town of Lansing?
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear that.
How many acres are proposed in the town of Lansing? How many acres are you going to use in the town of Lansing for rent?
So because land control is still under negotiation, I don't know exactly. I would say at a minimum about 250, at a maximum probably about 600 in the town of Lansing. I think it's going to, our assumption right now is it's going to end up a fairly even 50-50 split between 500 to 600 acres in Lansing and 500 to 600 acres in Groton. But again, that's a little bit up in the air.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Andrea? We're going to circle back, okay? Brownwood, do you have any questions?
Not at this moment.
Okay. Doug?
Mitch, are you actually leasing the land or buying it?
So we do both. What we do is we'll sign a landowner under an option agreement. So we'll pay them an upfront payment to allow us the time to develop and determine if the project is going to go forward. And then according to what the landowner wanted at that time, that can be either an option to lease a portion of their land or an option to purchase a portion of their land, depending on their intent. I would say most commonly we're leasing. That seems to be what across the state, what most people are interested in. But we do, I'd say probably 10 to 20% of the time, a landowner's interested in either subdividing off a piece of their land or selling their land entirely.
Okay, and will those subdivisions have to go through the planning board?
They would have to go through, whatever local approval process applied. Yep.
If you had a lot
we would need to. Oh, go ahead.
Have you had a lot of interest in this?
Yeah, we're definitely getting some traction, both with farmers and with folks that have. Though I think it's less common on Lansing side. Folks that have kind of like unused or forested land. I think that's more common in Groton. I think a lot of the land in Lansing is being used, but we're definitely getting interest. I think it's a lucrative opportunity, especially for folks that maybe want to use just a portion of their land as supplemental income. We're definitely, we're working with a few people who are kind of, showing us the areas that they think would be good for solar, but, some areas that they want to keep for farmland. So it's, but we're definitely seeing interest, and, I feel confident that we'll be, able to put the necessary, 1,200 acres together.
So how long is the lease for typically, if you lease it?
So once the lease started, the lease would go for 25 years, with extensions out to a potential of 40. Right now our understanding is that the life of the project is about 30 years. But following that, it could be, the panels could live for 35, 40, but it's a baseline 25-year lease.
And last question that I can think of right now. What do you do with the panels when their life is up? I mean, how do they get recycled, or how do they get, how do they get disposed of, supposedly?
Yeah, so there's a lot of discussion on that right now, because not a lot of these projects have had to be taken down, obviously, at this point, especially not the large scale ones. There's an understanding that like an industry of module recycling is starting to pop up. There are especially like a lot of the European manufacturers are starting to like have a recycling cost built into the purchase price of the module, and so you basically, when you buy it, they know that at the end of the project they're taking those modules back. There are also potential independent recyclers. To date, a lot of the modules that are being disposed of are getting landfilled. And so our hope is that, we'll be able to identify a better solution than that. But that industry is still kind of new. And so it's I don't have a perfect answer for you, but there are, companies popping up that kind of strip the modules for their valuable parts, break them down into their recyclable components, and then do recycling, because there is, there's valuable material built into them that makes sense to salvage if you can do it appropriately.
To my understanding, there is some toxic material in solar panels now, I believe. Is that correct?
So a lot of the discussion on like the toxic panels comes from about 10 years ago, when thin film panels were very common. So those had cadmium in them, and if they were to break, there was concern for leaching. Now the most dangerous thing that's in the panel is usually the solder that's used to just connect the conductors to each other.
Is that a lead-based solder?
The lead base is actually getting phased out as well. For years it was. I don't know what the base is now. I think some manufacturers still do use that lead based solder, others don't. But that the testing that the newer modules have to go through, getting it once we've gotten away from the thin film modules, they basically get crushed, and they get run through an acid wash bath to test the leaching, and so they get confirmed of a certain threshold that they need to meet. And we have I think some university in North Carolina did a study on kind of how that how that works. I think I could dig that up and try to get that to you guys.
And I thought of another one. Is there a decommissioning plan for this at 30 years or whatever you expect?
Yeah, so we have kind of general decommissioning plans that we use, but each project's decommissioning plan is going to need to be, kind of specific and worked through with the permitting agency and with the state. And we'll obviously also need the help of a professional engineer to establish a specific decommissioning plan for the project.
So that would be but you're selling this as a wholesale system. So really, that's more through the state, as I understand. I mean, it's not There's not a ton we can do in that situation, I believe.
Well, and so that was kind of what I was mentioning earlier, was that, part of what we'll need to do once we, knock on wood, assuming we do receive an award, would be to work with you guys to understand, how the town can be involved, because it is going to be a state-run process, whether we do the Article 10 process or the new Office of Renewable Energy Siting process. Either way, it's going to be state-run. Yeah, Article 23 or Section 94C, or I don't think they've decided on what they're going to be kind of conveniently calling it yet. But
what the difference?
But I think our goal is to work with the town to make sure you guys have a seat at the table, and we don't want to be presenting anything to the state that you guys haven't already kind of at least looked at and been made aware of. So. I think you're right to a certain extent. It's going to be the state's regulation that comes down to apply to whatever decommissioning plan we have. But, as much as we can work with the town and work with the community as well, neighbors and locals, we want to be incorporating as much of that as we can, because it's a public facing process. And, we have a reputation to uphold, as I'm sure you guys can understand, of trying to be, good developers. So we want to make sure we're being as open as we can.
No, I understand that totally. I'm in contracting myself, so not to your scale, so to speak. But, yeah, so
it's all the same.
All the same, but bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I got.
All right, we can step back on that if something comes up. We'll do it again for everybody. Joe, you have any questions?
Yeah, what's your timeline for the need of this letter of support?
So like I said, our bid is late October. So 2 weeks from now, we're hoping to submit our bid to NYSERDA. We do, obviously, from our presence at a variety of town board meetings and some correspondence, we could, I think, show to NYSERDA what we need to, which is that we, have attended meetings and you guys know about us. But, our hope is to present the letter, which we shared, which was sort of a factual statement of our, making you guys aware of the project. We tried to avoid any language regarding, support or approval or anything like that. So that's the hope, is that the letter will just indicate to them that we've had this discussion and you guys are aware of us. But yeah, so 2 weeks from now is when we're hoping to submit that. So if we could, have that prior to that date, that would be ideal.
Well, what is that date? Because I'm wondering if we could approve the letter on the 21st, or whether you need us to approve it now.
So we would need to submit it on the 21st
Okay.
As part of that bid submission. So if it's an evening meeting, we would need it before then.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. One of the reasons we're having this emergency meeting is because. Well,
Ed, I had another question.
and I will let you circle back. Okay.
Okay.
We're not done.
Sorry.
We have to go through 3 or 4 cycles. We will. Okay. But one of the
Sounds
reasons.
good.
One of the reasons we're having this emergency meeting today is because S Power and also CS Energy are both applying, right? I believe, for the same pot of money. And once again, that's why we're having this today, because S Power was under the same timeline of October 21st. And that's why the various advisory committees have come up and worked very hard to get this in front of us so we can think about it today. Having said that, CJ, do you have any comments to chime in with questions or comments before we circle back and go through again?
Sure, I would just say that in the case of S Power's proposal, because of the siting that includes the former Cayuga power plant, that was referred to the Lansing Advisory Committee on the Power Plant Future for their consideration and their weighing in on that potential letter of support. So I believe that they returned a resolution for your consideration. I don't believe they actually made any changes to the draft letters. We pretty much passed them on to the town board verbatim as prepared in both instances, both S Power and CS Energy's respective letters of support. So that's it.
Okay, so I'll hold my questions. We'll go back again in alphabetical order. Andra, do you have anything at this time? Okay, Bronwyn, go ahead.
I have something to say about the S Power letter, but that can wait. I am wondering about, you're talking about 1,000 to 1,300 acres. How contiguous do you need that to be?
So for us, contiguous is always better. Obviously, from an electrical perspective, you get line losses if you have to connect, long runs of pieces that are far away from each other. It doesn't have to be purely contiguous. I would say as long as we have, pieces of, 50 to 100 acres that are contiguous with themselves, we can connect those over some fairly good distances, up to maybe a half a mile or more, to kind of piece that together. I think it's going to end up, as far as I'm expecting right now, there's going to be probably 2 or 3 fairly good contiguous chunks that will be connected through, a variety of easements and right-of-ways.
Okay, so if you have about 50 acres each chunk, you're able to piece it together. That's kind of the smallest you want a piece to be?
That's a good rule of thumb. Depending on the land, we could potentially go a little bit smaller in a chunk, but that's, I think, about what we'll look for. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That's helpful.
Yep.
Anything else? Anything else, Bronwyn?
Nope.
Doug?
I'm all set.
Joe?
I'm set.
Okay. Anything else, CJ?
Nope, nothing for me.
All right, so my understanding is that when we talk about the decommissioning plan, at least in the past, there was a bond that had to be put up. I think when, way back when the Cuba Operating Company was looking to do solar, that was one of those discussions that was brought up in the preliminary discussions, that you'd have to put a bond up front. Ours, you'd have to find out as we say here, the scope of work, what needs to be done. Of course, these things obviously change over 10, 15, 20 months as opposed to 10, 15, 20 years. The other comment I would have is that are these things, as this business evolves, and what we're doing now would not be probably possible 10, 15 years ago. These meetings shows you how technology just rockets ahead. As this thing goes forward, is it farmland that can be used underneath this, especially if you lease it? Is that something in the future to be open to as these things become more efficient and smaller or higher, so they have less wind, amongst other things? That's an engineering thing, but we would be open to that as you redesign them. I have another comment or question, but I'll leave it at that for right now.
Yeah, so that's definitely something we're open to. It's something that we've explored on some of our other projects in terms of, co-location of certain like sheep, other grazing animals, spreading of the rows to allow for, haying, continued hay operations. There's been a lot that we've analyzed at this point. We haven't been able to implement any of them on a large scale yet. But part of our process through this new state process is going to be working with Department of Ag and Markets. They have indicated that any NYSERDA bid project was going to have to pay certain mitigation payments for projects that are built over ag soils. So we're pretty incentivized to stay away from the prime soils as much as we can. And they've also added the caveat that, some of that mitigation payment could potentially be lessened if we were to entertain, you know, co-location of ads, whether it be, you know, produce or livestock or what have you. So we're incentivized to explore that, and we are definitely interested in it. It's something I am personally very interested in. I think it's a great idea. I can't say we're definitely going to do it because I haven't seen it done on a massive scale yet. But it's definitely something that we're open to. And I think our best source for that kind of brainstorming and information is, you know, the landowners and the community that we're working in, because they'll know, you know, who has a farm operation that could ramp up. They'll know who, you know, has the ability to kind of like make that work. And so we're definitely open to hearing it out and trying to fit it in.
So another question I had is the carcinogens, the cadmium. Are there any, it sounds like that material is not in these solar panels?
No, there's the primary material in these is silicon, which is basically just sand. There is, like I mentioned to Doug, you know, there's copper and silver and you know, solder that's used to kind of like piece everything together in very small quantities. And those, you know, obviously you don't want to be eating those, but you know, they have to go through very serious, rigorous testing. So that even if the panels do break, they're tested to make sure there's no you know, no chance of leaching during a rain, because they do have if you look, and I can share on another presentation, the way the modules are stacked together, there's you know, firm plastic protective sheeting that's outside the silicon and silver. And that's intended so that even if the module breaks or bends or shatters, everything is contained in a watertight vessel so that nothing can leach out.
So are you also in your project considering battery storage?
At this time, we're not. Battery storage is certainly something that we as a company do, and is definitely interesting to us from a industry perspective. But for this project in particular, it just didn't seem to pencil out for us on this one. So we're going pure solar for this project.
But as technology advances, I'm sure that might be a future consideration.
It might be, but if it were, we would be probably permitting it separately, because we would have to, the way the interconnection system works, if you don't submit the storage in with the same application as the solar, you have to kind of interconnect it separately. So we would be, you know, if we were to entertain that, that would be probably a separate discussion, maybe a few years down the line.
I understand, and please don't take this personally. My personal opinion is that this whole industry is in the infant stage right now. And when you get these breakthroughs, they'll just, once again, leapfrog above. So, okay, let's go one more time. Any questions?
No.
Brown one?
She shook her head no.
No? Okay, Doug?
No.
Joe?
I'm set.
CJ, you have more comments?
Nope. Unless you have questions, specific questions you'd like me to answer or try to answer.
Well, for right now, we're still in the Article 10 stage, not in the Article 23 or Article 94C stage. I don't know, you know, we're trying to get there, I guess. So it sounds like maybe we might have a little more input on site plan, amongst other things here, buffering, that type of thing, amongst others. But also, CJ, do you want to just touch briefly on any type of financial benefit to the town? I know these things might be under a pilot, but things perhaps like a host agreement.
Yeah, those are excellent questions. Absolutely. And something that's currently being discussed at Department of Public Service and I'm sure Office of Renewable Energy Siting. in past conversations with CS Energy, I believe that they had indicated that they would be willing to enter into a separate host community agreement with the town specifically. Most solar developers are used to doing that, and I'll let them speak to that, of course. But from what I understand, based on the new DPS white paper regarding this, as well as the new ORS draft regulations, which I sent along not too long ago. But there will be three either options that can be applied either a la carte, or I believe the municipality can choose all three or some combination of negotiating that with the renewable owners, right? So number one would be a discount or credit on the utility bills of residential customers, to essentially provide a discount to their electric bill, essentially as kind of a thank you, for hosting this project and giving a benefit to the people who live in the community. Number two would be a host community benefit that would be negotiated by ORS, or made into policy, such as like a uniform pilot. I know that's been discussed. We'd have to ask Jay Franklin at Department of Assessment to fill us in more. I believe he's been a part of a working group that's been discussing that. And number three of the options for host community benefits, speaking about them broadly, would be a direct agreement between the applicant or renewable owner and the municipality. So such as a per megawatt payment based on the size of the system. And I will cease and desist and let the solar developers speak to what they would envision for that type of compensatory arrangement.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, CJ. So CJ's right. As far as we understand it, those kind of multiple options are currently being entertained. That first option, in terms of providing a discount to residents directly, we're very interested in. We have not seen ORES or the NYSO tell us how that would work yet, which is a concern, obviously. But we're definitely interested in that if they do figure out a way to make it work. In terms of host community benefit as determined by the Office of Renewable Energy Siting, I think we'd like to avoid that as much as possible. I think we've had a great success negotiating host agreements directly with municipalities and school districts and counties. So we'd like to proceed with that success. In terms of the direct agreement with the municipality, there's actually a couple of sources of revenue that come into the town as a part of these projects. The first is the pilot, which we would be negotiating with the IDA. That obviously the revenue from that pilot, the portion of that goes to the town is the town's tax split. So not a massive portion. Obviously, a good portion of that goes to the school district and county. The second source of revenue is going to be this host community agreement that we would hope to negotiate, ideally on a dollar per megawatt basis. But we've also we've negotiated upfront payments to deal with if there's an immediate budget crisis, we can pay upfront payments. And there are also there's like public works that we've gotten involved in, donating our construction equipment, our construction supervisors' time to install, whether it be a public park or something like that. We're happy to work on that. And then, obviously just that dollar per megawatt payment. And then the third source of revenue that kind of comes into the town as a result of these projects is that, where we do end up siting on ag land, we generally take we either reduce or take out that parcel from its agricultural assessment, and we pay for that increase in the taxes. So that I think is going to be fairly significant. I don't know exactly what the numbers are going to shake out because we don't know yet. How much of the land we're going to be using is going to be ag assessed. But I think that's another piece to take under consideration. So those are kind of the three main pieces. You got the pilot revenue, the host community agreement revenue, and the assessment increase revenue.
So I know we're in the infant stage when we talk about host community agreements. And CJ, I'm going to throw this back to you also. Has there ever been an agreement where you also have inexpensive power for businesses? Because Lansing seems to be the only one that, because of a moratorium, we're handcuffed to try to increase our businesses in this area, i.e. Crossroads moves their catering business to or Portland because they have natural gas. We don't have, they would have actually wanted to locate here amongst other businesses because business cannot get inexpensive, reliable power. And consequently, is there something that we can do with a host agreement or something where businesses also get very inexpensive power, very similar to like Groton does with their hydro, so that we can entice businesses to come in here, since we seem to be the only or very few municipalities that are growing in Tompkins County, even though we've been hamstrung and discriminated against because other businesses seem to have natural gas and they thrive and we don't. So having said that, is there a way that we can also maybe negotiate so that businesses that come in this area and existing businesses also have a different source of power so they can at least survive in this town?
I think absolutely. I don't know exactly what that method will be yet. Like I said, that that discounted electricity bill thing that ORES is talking about hasn't been ironed out yet. Because we're selling wholesale, we're not selling directly to consumers. That being said, we've been creative in the past. We've been able to, come up with kind of interesting new agreements. And basically, anything that two willing parties are able to contract, they can do, right? So, if it turned into us, making payments to the town directly to, say, a fund that the town would have available to incentivize businesses, we could be making payments into that kind of a fund, or we could be, making payments, splitting that payment among, people within a certain radius of the project, or, whatever we determine is going to be the best way to go about it. Like I said, we're willing to be creative. We're not hamstrung, or we don't have our hands tied in terms of we need to do it this particular way. We're eager to make things work.
Well, thank you. Maybe we even put this in the incentive zone. There's different ways we can negotiate this, or to any business. I don't know. These are all, once again, infant. See, the thing I will share with this, and CJ, correct me if I'm wrong, the town of Fenner pays no town tax because of their host community agreements with their wind power. Is that true?
I think they've managed to reduce their property tax bills pretty substantially. Of course, there's not a lot of population there either. Mitch can probably speak to these a lot better than I can, but I may have misspoke recently at the Conservation Advisory Council meeting because we were talking about specifically the new Department of Public Service issued this, so-called white paper. And in it, they're talking about specific host community benefit programs, but that are geared specifically towards residential electric utility customers. And so that dollar amount, which they're suggesting as $500 per megawatt, is a payment only for that specific distribution of funds. Whereas host community agreements are a separate vehicle that the developer and town can enter into. So I just want to be clear, there's these kind of three pots, potential pots of money. One of them is for residential utility customers that the Public Service Commission will decide, because that's what they do. Whatever the Office of Renewable Energy siting comes up with maybe a uniform pilot or something else, some other compensatory system. And then number three is whatever the town or, host municipality enters into with the renewable owners, right? So there's these kind of, and I think the latter, and Mitch, correct me if I'm wrong, the latter part of that is probably the most negotiable out of any of them. The other two are probably going to be uniformly applied by ORS and DPS. That's just
that's my understanding, is that there are going to be there's going to be some pieces that are set by ORES and by Public Service Commission. What we don't know yet is how much of an opportunity we might have to, pull money out of those buckets into the bucket of the host community agreement. That part is again, these things are still very new, kind of up in the air, but yeah, that host community portion is the negotiable portion that, we would want to work out a solution on.
The reason I share this is because we just got information back about the power plant land. Now that it's basically no longer a pilot, but it's assessed land, and that dropped from 20 million down to 2. So we lost $18 million of assessed value this year. And that's for total, when you roughly go $30 a thousand to pay taxes in this town, that's $540,000 of tax revenue between our school, county, town, fire protection, library that will have been lost this year. Granted, we've had some new lumber, but mostly some old existing houses and everything that have increased in assessment, and they will have to take the brunt of this. But once again, here's the reality. Good news is that it's down to 2 million. You can't go much farther. That is good news. I mean, 4 years ago it was 60 million. You can just do the math. Cumulatively, it's 118 million over 4 years. If you lose the first year, you lose it the next 4 years. Probably more than that, but it is what it is. This is why I think these community agreements are extremely important to discuss and hopefully maximize. I know Mitch didn't want to hear that, but on the other hand,
minimize. You want to minimize those?
Exactly. But it's like with any other business. If the numbers didn't work, we would be having these discussions. So, anyways,
right. And so I think that is that budgeting aspect is a critical piece of these long-term pilot agreements. Whether they go for 30 or 35 years, that you have a fixed revenue where you're not at risk of the assessment dropping off. The other piece, as I understand it, and this is going to be something we need to discuss with Jane Franklin, obviously, but the project itself, the components and the panels and posts and racking and all this stuff, is going to have its own kind of like a ghost tax parcel number. So that the project will be assessed kind of on its own. It'll pay special district taxes kind of on its own. And then, the land that's underneath it will likely increase in assessment due to what I mentioned before, which is the ag exemption loss. But then you're not looking at the revenue of as the panels degrade and as the system kind of winds down, you're not looking at that assessment going up and down because we've been locked into a fixed, most likely escalating pilot payment.
Is there depreciation in this? You probably can write that off, I would imagine, in your business bottom line.
Yeah, there's depreciation associated with the panels as they degrade. Yep.
Okay. If nothing else, then I think we have on our agenda motion to authorize town supervisor to execute letter of support for CS Energy's Yellow Barn Solar Energy Facility, NYSERDA 2020 solicitation application. Do I hear somebody make the motion? Andrea moves it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Doug seconds it. Do we have to have discussion on this one?
I guess. I can't imagine there's any discussion left, but I guess you could ask.
Okay, any further comments?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mitch.
Thank you guys very much. And, any questions? I think everybody should have my card at this point. If not, I'll drop it off next time I'm in town.
Hey, Mitch, I just want to mention, I just did receive from Ann a copy of the presentation I think you were trying to give. I don't know what happened.
Oh, did it not present?
There was a couple of slides. No, it was just you talking. So, but I'm happy to pass that on to the town board.
Apologize for that.
It seemed effortless, so I figured you were just going with it. Okay.
I think that's important because especially as I think positive about these projects, when you go in front of site plan, people want to be educated ahead of time. So any information you can give us, and also you have a contact email, perhaps people can ask you questions. Our residents can ask you questions, so you open that also.
Yep, absolutely.
This is an excellent time to maybe have teachable moments for everyone as we go into a new era.
Would you mind just putting that screen up for a moment, sharing the presentation with maybe your contact info is the last page, just so folks who might be watching could see.
Here, absolutely. Let me
Maybe
try to do it correctly this time. All right, I swear I can do this.
I just want to note that I have to leave in about 20 minutes. I'm wondering if we could do more of this presentation at our next meeting.
We're done with this.
There is no
Got my,
this is it. He's just gonna give us the contact information so people on YouTube have it. And then we can move on from there. And if people want to see the presentation, I guess they either can contact Deb or contact CJ, or they can contact you, Mitch, right? You can send it to them.
Yep, absolutely. So can everybody see my screen now?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry that I didn't do that right in the first place. You guys were all very kind.
No, you're fine. I guess for you and Ann, I guess we're done with this part of our emergency meeting. So we wish you well. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much.
Okay. Let's move on to the next part. This is the resolution. Let's see if I see this right. Yes, we just did yellow barn, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now we go to resolution urging NYSERDA to support Huga Operating Company's proposal to place a large solar installation on the land of the former Huga Power Plant. Do I have someone make a motion?
I'll move.
I'll second it.
I'll second it. I'll second it.
I'll second it, Joe. That's okay. We'll plenty of time to talk. We have Bronwyn making the motion. We have any further discussion?
I'm having trouble hearing you, Ed.
Yeah, I didn't catch what you said.
We have Brown made the motion. We have Brown made the motion and I've seconded it. Is there any further discussion?
I would like to change the first resolve as I sent out to everyone to specify the potential impacts that we know about.
I just wanted to say that I'm really thankful for both committees for working hard on this. The Lansing Advisory Committee on the Power Plant Future and the Conservation Advisory Council both did some special meetings and met to really fine tune what they wrote, and I am appreciative.
Brown, did they both have input on this resolution?
I'm sorry, what?
Did they both have input on this resolution?
Yes.
I have a concern then. I have a board member who's on one of these committees. Is there a conflict and should he recuse himself?
I don't understand what you're saying, Ed.
What I'm saying is that because you have a board, because Joe, your wife is on one of these committees and she has put a resolution through and now you're changing it or proposing to change it, I'm concerned there's a conflict with this. I'm asking the question, should you recuse yourself?
I don't see the conflict.
Okay, let the record state that you will not recuse yourself, so let's move on. Anybody else have any comments about this resolution?
I'm a little confused about our thinking and our plan. So my comment isn't exactly about the resolution, but the combination of the resolution and letter. The committee, the Lansing Advisory Committee on the Power Plant Future worked very hard on the resolution and didn't address the letter. It wasn't that they said, oh yeah, that's great, we just want it to go as is. They were working on the resolution in place of it. So that is useful information for everybody to have as we talk about the resolution.
Well, I think the thing about the resolution as it stands, first of all, when the committee puts something together, I think it's very disrespectful when you just want to change it. Why have it as an advisory board? They worked very hard on this, and they also practically dropped everything. I personally feel they have addressed the concerns about the environment, which I appreciate because I would have added something if they didn't. I also am I appreciate the fact they have also graciously addressed the forest acreage and the steep slopes. I think that is, in my opinion, enough, because the main reason for this meeting is to give support to this project, not to dictate terms and not to try to discuss what they're going to do. It is then up to the parties to seek the financing and to seek negotiations if they want to expand, and not have people or the public reach out to different companies and try to negotiate or influence. Having said that, I'm very comfortable the way this is now, and I commend both committees for doing this. And how does everyone else feel about this? To just, we'll just put this to a vote eventually, but I don't see any reason why we should go forward on this with the changes. I also am very concerned that when these changes are made, that our attorney has to be involved with this when there's criticism of the attorney fees already. And once again, I'm also concerned that some of these emails don't go out to everybody. I mean, if we're going to be transparent, we need to share all these questions we have with our planner, with all the other different board members, so they're aware of what's going on. That's my concern. And having said that, we have a motion and we have a second. We've had some discussion. I personally don't feel that this needs to be changed. And I'll ask for a vote right now the way it exists and see how the board feels. Mrs. Munson?
So as it stands in.
As it stands right now.
Okay. Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Doug Day,
Yes.
Bronwyn Losey,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Ed Levine,
Yes. Thank you. Now, the next one, which is
Resolution hiring full-time information aide and supervisor in town clerk's office.
right. So let me just circle back here. That resolution has also authorized me to send that letter of support.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
Yes.
just want to make sure that everybody in our audience knows that.
Yeah.
I'll say, so you making a motion for the next one, Andrea? Yes, I'll second it.
I was reading.
So Andrea made a motion, I second. Any further discussion? Mrs. Munson?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Doug Day,
Yes.
Bronwyn Losey. That was a yes.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes.
Okay.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.